This is Mrs. Naslin, and today we'll be doing Unit 2, Lesson 2, Lines, Line Segments, and Rays. Our learning targets for today are, I can identify lines, line segments, and rays. I can demonstrate understanding of perpendicular and parallel, and I can draw, label, and name geometric figures. The vocabulary we're going to be talking about is line, line segment, ray, angle, vertex, oblique, perpendicular, right angle, and parallel. So the first thing we're going to do is go through some of the terminology that we'll be talking about today. So the first one is line. A line is straight and continues forever in both directions. You can say that a figure is a line, or you can draw arrowheads on its end to say that it extends forever. So this is an example of a line. It goes forever in both directions. Most of the times people will just draw little arrows at the end to show that the line goes on forever. It also has to be straight. It can't be curvy. A line segment has a fixed length. If a figure is a line segment, it cannot be made longer. You can add points at the end of the line segment to show that it cannot be made longer. So this is an example of a line segment. So it's a line and 2 points are added, meaning it doesn't go any longer than that. Okay, so that's how we show a line segment. A ray begins at a point and can go on forever, but in only one direction. So here's an example of a ray. We have a point on one end and then an arrow, meaning it can go on forever on the other. So a ray can only go on forever in one direction. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is angles. When lines, line segments, or rays meet at a point, they form one or more angles. So if we look here, in this case we have a line segment and a line segment, and all these points, or all these things right here, these are called angles. So a lot of times we represent angles, and they did a really small one here with a little bit of a circle. I'll just draw one here so you can see it. A lot of times we represent angles by drawing a little bit of a circle that kind of connects the two lines, and those are angles. All right. When two lines, line segments or ray, cross and form four congruent angles, the lines are perpendicular and the angles made are right angles. So basically, whenever you see a cross like this, or when they hit each other at what we call a right angle, and I always say if you're looking at a sheet of paper, if you take your sheet of paper and you could put the corner right there and it fits exactly in this space, then it's a right angle, and the lines are perpendicular. They're exactly at a right angle to each other. Okay? All right, the last term we're going to talk about is parallel. When two lines are the same distance apart at every point, they are called parallel. So basically, these lines are exactly the same distance apart here, and they're exactly the same distance apart here. And you'll see that they're lines, they can go on forever, and they will never hit. No matter how long they go on, they will never hit each other. If you think of a railroad track, it's a great example. A straight railroad track is a great example of a parallel line. They never would hit each other. The two sides of the tracks just keep going, and they never hit each other. So that's a lot of terms, but we're going to practice finding these terms here on the next page. All right, on this page, we're going to sort and name different figures. So first we're looking for examples of lines. Remember, lines go on forever, and they're usually represented with arrows on either side. So we're supposed to choose all the letters that have examples of lines. So let me do a couple of them here. B has a line on it. Let's see what else. How about D? They go on forever. I has a line. K has a line that goes on forever. L has a line. And lastly, P has a line that goes on forever. All right, so now it's going to be your turn. For The next one, we're looking for line segments. Now remember, line segments we represented by drawing a line and then having a point on both ends. So I'll give you the first example, and then I want you to go ahead and try to find the rest. The first example of a line segment is C, because there's 2 points that do not go on in either direction. So go ahead and select all of the choices that are line segments. All right, so if you selected E, H, and J, then you found all of the line segments in this figure. All right, the next one we're looking for is rays. A ray starts with, then has an endpoint, and then it has a continuous line going in only one direction. So the first example of a ray that I see is A. It has an endpoint and it has an arrow that continues on forever. So go ahead and see if you can find all the other rays in these figures. All right, there are quite a few of them. So let's see. You should have found F, G, oops, M, N, and O were all examples of rays that go off in one direction. All right, the next thing we're going to be looking for is angles. So remember, an angle is when two lines meet, it forms an angle. So a lot of them have angles. I'll point out the first one, and then you can work on finding the rest. So here's an example of an angle. Two lines meet, forming an angle. So B would be my first example of an angle. Go ahead and select the rest of them that form angles. All right, you came up with E, M, and P, then you found all of the angles. All right, the next one we're going to be doing is perpendicular and right angles. And I'm going to actually leave it like this because I want you to be able to see them. But remember, a perpendicular and right angle is when they hit at exactly 90 degrees. A piece of paper, the corner of a piece of paper would be able to fit into that angle perfectly. So the first example is E. See, a piece of paper's corner would fit perfectly into there. Makes a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to write E down and see if you can find another example of a perpendicular and right angle. All right, if you said P, congratulations. And that one was tricky because P is at an angle here, but it does form a right angle. All right, the last thing I'm going to have you look for is parallel lines. So remember, these are lines that will never meet as they continue. So the first example that I see is D, because they'll never meet and they go on forever. I didn't, oops, I skipped one. So I picked D, but there's another one that I might have skipped. So go ahead and see if you can find the other parallel lines that make up the parallel lines in these sets. All right, if you came up with C, D, and G, you are right on. So C, D, and G, then you found all of the parallel lines. Great work. All right, on this slide, we're going to talk about labeling lines, line segments, rays, and angles. So first it says the letters A, B name the line in this figure. Which letters name a ray in this figure? So first off, let's look for A and B. A to B is a line because it continues in both directions. They want us to find a ray. So if I look here, there's an endpoint and it keeps going. So this is a ray. If I was going to label a ray, I'm just going to write CD to label that ray. Now it says a vertex is a point that is common to both two sides of an angle. One angle in this figure is angle AEC. The middle letter of the angle name indicates its vertex. So if I find AEC, AEC, that's the angle. The vertex is the middle letter in this case, which is E. So it says to go ahead and label other angles in this figure. So we already did AEC. When I go to write the name of an angle, I draw this little angle sign like this. And then I'm just going to pick some letters and I'm going to put the vertex in the middle. So I'm going to do A, E, D. So angle A, E, D. Okay. If I was going to do another angle, say comma, angle, and I could do D, E, B. D, E, B. And I could keep going until I labeled all of the angles in that figure. So again, the vertex is the middle. We label angles by doing this. If we're labeling a line, oftentimes you'll see that we label it by putting the two letters together and drawing a line over it, and I'll show you that here in a second. So it says, name the line segment, vertex, and angles in each figure below. So if I wanted to do a line segment, let's say I was doing GE, what I would do is I would go ahead and write, oh, got a different one there. I would write GE and then I put a line above it. And then I could do the other one, which is DF, and I could put a line above it. The vertex point, which is the point in the middle where all the lines meet. Go ahead and see if you can figure that one out. Which point in figure 11 do all the lines meet? All right, if you said H, right on. Okay, H is the point where all the lines meet. There we go. And now it wants us to label one angle. So remember, to label an angle, you're going to draw this little angle sign, and then you can pick a point where it meets in the middle. So in this case, I'm going to do FHE. All right, FH. It's not very good writing, sorry. FHE. All right. All right. Let's go down here and go ahead and find a line segment for number 12. What's one example of a line segment? All right, if you said IK or LJ, right on. The vertex in this case is M, the middle point, and an angle, choose one of the angles listed that matches an angle in here. So if you chose any of these angles, you were right on. So angle IMJ, angle JMK, angle KML, or angle LMI. All right. Lastly, we're going to talk about labeling the parts of a plane figure. So basically it says for each figure, name the sides and that look parallel for those that look perpendicular. Not every example has both, but at least has one angle. So you have to label at least one angle. So you're going to look at the image and decide if there's any parallel lines versus any perpendicular lines. So in this case, I'm going to look at this angle and say, well, C and D is parallel to F and E. So when I write this, again, I'm going to go ahead and write the letters. So I'll put C and D. And then I'm going to put the line above it to represent the line. And then I'm going to put F and E are parallel to each other. And again, I'll put the line above it to show that I'm talking about those lines. Okay. There are no perpendicular lines. There's no 90-degree angles in this case, so I get to skip that. And then I just get to label a angle, any angle that I see in here. So I'm going to do CFE. So I'm going to draw my triangle and write CFE. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and let you try the next one here. So first off, look at that shape, number 16. Are there any parallel lines? Perpendicular lines or an angle. So there are no parallel lines, but there are perpendicular lines. Go ahead and choose which two are perpendicular. All right, if you said X and Z and Z and Y, great. And then go ahead and choose one angle that you could list. And they just put angle X, Z, and Y. But if you chose any of the other angles, then it would be right as well. Great work. Today we